Hey guys, it's V-Man from No Budget Productions, and with me today is Commander Cockings. Still no promotion for him. How are we doing today, Sam?
Yes, those promotions. I'm always teased with them. Just next year. Next year.
You are like
Next year.
you are like the Ensign Kim of the Trek yards. It's
I like to think I'm the Captain Kirk in the sense once you had the promotion, you guys know you only want to stay in that other chair. So Captain.
see
No,
the difference between you and Captain Kirk is like Captain Kirk has now been to actual space. You're at the green screen in the ship. So I mean, I don't know. Are you headed to space next? Is that what you're telling me, or
I'm sure I could digitally do it. That's half
that,
as good.
there you go. There you go,
A way
man.
of doing it.
There you go, man. So now in current Trek stuff that we got coming on, I think next week is the season finale of
This week.
Is it this week?
So tomorrow. Tomorrow the next day, depending on which time
It's
zone, yeah.
what is the day? Oh, okay, that's right. For some reason I was thinking next week was the 14th. So it's tomorrow.
Yeah.
Good, because I was thinking, I was like, why the hell would they skip a week and then do the season finale? So that's really stupid. Okay, so it's me that just had my brain shut off for a second. So there was a new starship that looked kind of like a 24th century version of the Excelsior on that's kind of had everyone's mind a buzz. What are your thoughts on that, being a ship guru?
Well, we've kind of avoided looking at it, as you can imagine, until the next. Well, it's great that they're teasing it, but we've kind of avoided. Well, I did tweet Mike Mann, showrunner. We occasionally have words on Twitter because he knows we do, hardcore, analytical stuff, which he loves. And I said, "Oh, Mike, more Trek Yards goodness," and like grinny face, and he was like, like that. I mean, it is and it isn't an Excelsior. We'll see. Hopefully, it factors meaningfully. Almost the worst thing for Lower Decks is to show a thing and then that's the one shot. It's like, no, use it. Show us the ship, give it some life, etc. But we'll see. I'm hoping for Titan to come back because Titan has been underused massively. But
so Captain Foley says the real captain is here. Well, hello, Captain Foley. How are we doing? Welcome. I'm still not convinced he won't show up surprisingly on one of these Samtober meetings with you. I don't know, man.
Keep me in suspense. Keep him in suspense as well.
So a quick question, and I'm not really sure. What do you think of the Cerritos? Do you think it's a beautiful ship? Do you think it's an ugly ship? Can you kind of be like, can you take it or leave it? What do you think, man?
Well, it's not designed to be a beautiful ship initially, so it can't be called beautiful. It's meant to be sort of chunky and blocky and super low tier. So it's got its own charm and its own life. It's good. It was a nice surprise after obviously Discovery and the other sort of odd designs, and even the things that are really odd about it, Mike Mann had a reason for them, like the back NCC number, things that are a bit weird. So it's definitely grew on us. Stuart slightly less quick than me. I logged onto. There's a reason. Wait for it. But then once he kind of clicked, Stuart, I really likes it, and it's actually really good emotion. I've done some work with it in CG, and it's actually quite nice. I mean, obviously, I wish it was a bit more. There's a few small things you do to tweak it, but it's still like animated over live action, whereas my version is live action over animated.
Why is the NCC the red shirt? Why is it in the back?
Well, there's two reasons. There's the joke reason, which is a real reason for his joke, and it's the real in-universe reason is because it's a ship that's more designed to tow ships. So any ship you're towing or running away from, because it's not a fighter, you can see the registry. Those are the real reasons. The secondary reason is its placement looks like a tramp stamp. And he thought that was funny.
Damn it.
So Mike, what a guy.
Bless his heart. That is
see, it's dumb, but there's a reason. So I give him credit,
It's a very good reason. I think we need more stuff like that. That's fucking awesome. So Captain Foley says we know who the captain of the new ship is, by the way. Yes,
I don't know. I don't hear. I don't know yet. I mean, I can undo the headphones if you want to say it, but I don't know.
Okay, it's Sonia Gomez. Okay, we're good. We're good now. We're good. We're good. We're good.
Yeah. Okay. I don't want to know that. It's tomorrow. Come on. It's tomorrow. Let me enjoy it.
See, I'm a spoiler hog. I have to, I love seeing that stuff. I'm like, oh, I'm in the know, even though none of us are really in the know. I feel like, you know. But So that being said, the series that's going to be taking place after this is Prodigy, if I'm not mistaken, right?
In 2 weeks after that, real
2 weeks
soon,
after.
real
So,
soon. No
so
break
what
for
are your
us.
thoughts? What are your thoughts on that? Are you excited for it? Or are you kind of like, because it's I think the most radically different from any of the shows we have so far, and with all the different shows we have, I think that kind of says something. Because I mean, you have all these weird, funky aliens. I mean, they really don't feel like a Star Trek universe type feel to it. What do you think? What are your thoughts?
I mean, it looks visually nice, if not necessarily recognizably Star Trek. A lot of those aspects, you know, the Tellarite, you wouldn't call the Tellarite from the outset, etc. And the ship certainly looks more JJ/Discovery than Prime. But until we know the story, until we like know the characters, I'll wait to judge because it's clearly very character focused. So I'll give them the chance to impress me and then go on. I can't judge anything by the very minimum we have so far. So there'll be that edge, that cliff edge of let's see what it is, and then I'll be able to judge it straight away. But I'm hopeful. We're always hopeful. And Captain Chakotay, that's great news. I'm all for that.
I wasn't even gonna say that because I was like, maybe that's too spoilery for you. I don't know if I should. Dude, I would. Chakotay was my favorite first officer. I felt like in Voyager they really didn't do much with him, and I thought, well, that sucks because I loved in the second episode when those two Maquis officers they go up to Chakotay, and this is after B'Elanna gets locked in her quarters for hitting I think Carrie it was.
Carrie, yeah.
Yeah. And they're like, if you want to take over the ship, they're like, we back you.
We're here,
yeah. He's like, what are you saying? And they're like,
I
if you want to take over the ship,
right here. We're ready, Chakotay.
right. And he says, if you speak like that again, I'll personally throw you in the brig for mutiny. And then he walks off, and they kind of look like, oh man, we just shit our pants, And I loved that because I was like, that is such a badass. Captain Foley says, "Why isn't Vance wearing his Trek Yards T-shirt?" I will wear it next week, Captain Foley. Mind you not, I will wear it. I will wear it next week. Oh, and Commander Cockings is drinking out of his Trek Yards cup. I will wear it next week, Captain Foley. I promise you. I promise you. But like I loved the fact that Chakotay, he had that kind of badass ness to him, and I felt like that was something that they never really wrote much afterwards after that. I mean, there were a few highlights, but they really didn't.
Oh yeah, I mean that Voyager is a story-based show, not a character-based show, so it benefits on characters, stories, and aliens, and cool things. Whenever the characters were given something really good, they always excelled. Like for the most part, the good stuff, and so he got lots of small chances. But yeah, it wasn't about always the characters. And and while people might have complained Voyager doesn't change very much, I think you can just as easily argue that whereas Equinox, they kind of went off the deep end with the crew. If they are this far from home, they're all really thinking we're never going to see home in our lifetime. Like we're not going to see it until we're either so old or dead. Like that everyone had that impression. So if we stay the Federation mindset, if we stay, keep everything neat and tidy, repair after every damage, repaint the walls when they get, if we keep everything prim and Federation standard, then the discipline keeps us going. Whereas if we break down and whatever, things might not go so well. So I kind of like the reset button because yes, you would feel this is structure is going to keep us all more sane. We are this beacon of Star Trek hope in the Delta Quadrant. Let's keep it up. So there is the universe reason for that.
Well, that's the thing. Like for me, I prefer more of a serial. Like I would have liked to have seen them go more down the Equinox. Just because like I would have liked to. The Year of Hell I think would have been very interesting. But I certainly see what you're talking about, where it kind of keeps the discipline. I think if we
both, though, but the show was ahead of its time, though. It should have had both styles. But if that show came out 10 years later, it would have been a whole different show.
Yeah,
have those serialized elements. It just was too early for that sort of style.
Well, I think if they had even if they had just like maybe 2 or 3 people like working on like the compound, like showing that that's what they were doing, 100%. That would have been a wonderful in-universe way to explain. But yeah, I think you're definitely right. Like if it had been 10 years later, because 10 years later would have put it in Battlestar Galactica-esque time, in which they were doing very much serialized. But I mean, you've got diehard Voyager fans that live and breathe. Then you have others that think it's the worst thing. But I'm very excited. But I'm very excited to see Chakotay come back because I think this is a way to give the character his due.
Yep.
And
100%.
plus fix, mend the bridges between Robert Beltran and Star Trek, because there was a lot of love lost between those two. He wasn't too happy with them. But anyway, so that being said, that's this week in Star Trek so far.
I just realized I was on the wrong microphone. I just realized. Does that sound better?
Oh yeah, sounds great. I mean, you didn't sound bad before, but yeah, sounds a little more clear. So we have your earlier works. What we're going to be talking about this week, in part 2 of Samtober is what we're calling this. And your earlier work kind of comes with the Federation Files, which is done at Warp 66 Studios, which is Dan Reynolds.
Warp 66. That was before.
Oh, that's right.
They were building them during the second half of them, but I was when they were just trying to film odds and sods and other, I was before that a little bit.
Right. And that is working with Dan Reynolds and Glenn Wolfe, and then the Starship Republic, which is Ray Tessie, and then a super huge one here, which was shot over quite a while, the Romulan Wars, which I think is probably, out of all the ones that I sat and watched, I think that one is probably the most most bang for the buck.
It's never been done on that scale before. That's why it took years. It's ambitious, Mark. You're crazy guy.
Yeah, it was like and it takes for a set of history that we haven't really touched upon. It makes you wanting more. Like, oh my God, this is what we could have had and we didn't. Oh man, missed opportunity. But let's go back to hold on a second. So let's go back to the early days of the Federation Files. Where are you at? You're sitting there on your computer, just looking at starships, just wondering what you're going to do. And then all of a sudden, you get a Netscape Navigator message pop up on your AOL, and it's back in the day.
Like a letter in the post, man. It was that long ago.
It's almost like Blue's Clues. The postmaster comes through. Your animated dog pops up, and then you've got a mail. So how did this happen? How did this relationship happen with you guys?
I mean, I'm not really sure I remember. So I was also doing Trek Yards at this point for between a year and 2, and I've been doing quite a lot of space effects in that. That was one of the things I really wanted to add to the show, was giving, additional video rather than just reusing clips. And Temporal Anomaly was in version 1.3 or whatever it was. Lots was done, but not really none of it done. And obviously I was doing shots, I was doing bits and bobs, and I'm sure he just approached me one day and said, "Hey, would you like to do some stuff?" I'm sure that must have been it. But I was very pleased to get a message from him if I did, because Glenn was one of the biggest backers of Temporal Anomaly back a few years before. He was the single biggest donor outside of people I physically knew, and that that film needed the funding, and that helped a lot. And in fact, I actually met him then at Ticonderoga, during one of our trips, and that was really nice to finally get to sort of meet the guy that we'd done some stuff with. And Glenn was obviously Mr. Cameo at that point. He's kind of still is a little bit now, but at that point there were more little productions, and he was in a lot of them. And he won some stuff, and it was relatively easy work for Connie's flybys, pretty straightforward stuff. But Trek Yards was always about, my PC was 5 PCs ago, and render power was a lot less professional because Trek Yards was part-time, whatever. And Trek Yards was only having me do so much quality, but now suddenly I had to do 1080p, I had to do more refined, I had to just push myself, and that was really fun to try and do. And I think some clipped examples of some stuff I did for them over the years. But the first shot in the lineup is the very first shot I did for him, which was
Let's go ahead and take a look at that, and then we'll get back to chit-chat about this. One second here. So in those, we saw three different ships. We saw a Constitution class ship, we saw a Dreadnought class, and we saw uh, some
Romulan
type
shuttle.
of Romulan shuttle. Okay, I was going to say some type of fighter shuttle. I'm not really familiar with others that aren't Federation type.
Yeah.
So the one thing that really has always impressed me about your work has been the planets. Because a lot of times, especially in my films, like I'll grab a stock photo of a planet, be like, all right, put the ship in front of this, and we're good to go. With yours, it looks like it looks like you're out. You're looking out, and you could reach out and touch it. It looks like you can see the clouds moving. The birds flying by and all this. Like, I mean, it looks breathtaking. And that's on beyond the ship detail that you have in your stuff. So now, what exactly were those? For those that don't know, what exactly were those films from the Federation Files?
So I start with His Name Is Mud, which actually I believe, well, Glenn, I remember that had another guy work, and he'd done lots of poor effects. They were confusing. They were lit. Like, ships had chrome hulls, so nothing felt right. I think the Connie had bright blue, like for no reason, just like here is, and it's just glowing blue. Very odd, nonsensical stuff. But that guy, I think, left, and then he said, "Can I come on?" and did all of his shots very quickly, and they looked like canon. So I kind of finished off that film, and then we did Extraction, which was the first like let's work together, and that was with the Romulan shuttle. I did some quite cool shots that I did my first Atmosphere, which was a real pain in the ass, but that was pretty fun. Oh god, we also did. I mean, I did a few shots for he moved away from space effects to other kinds of things. But I know the last shot I did was a Tell sequence, which was an important one because I thought, well, he was kind of using a kit bash of other shots. I said, no, you need Tell sequence. My skills have improved since then, and that kind of was the new Connie model. It is kind of fun to go back and see the old tricks, the old techniques, and the old models because I've really kind of my bar of entry for how good I accept for a 3D model is much higher now. But the composition is still reasonably good, and fundamentally, that's my skill is the building a shot. It's just my progressive knowledge has increased to how to light, texture, etc. the shots.
Talking about your different modeling, for someone like me, I'm very easily impressed. To me, I can't tell the difference between like a high graphic model of a CGI.
Well, you would if I showed you, but side by side. So I mean, there is a difference.
For I might have to ask you, maybe next week to do a side by side shot of like here's this and then here's this, but for until we get that, describe for me like what are the details that you do differently? What is the amount of work that goes into your old stuff versus what you do now?
Yeah, so the Connie was obviously the big one. When I'd started, it was Federation Files, it was Republic, it was all TOS stuff, and so that was we have to get a Connie built, and that was really great because Glenn actually commissioned the Connie, and that I've used ever since. It's still the Avalon Connie. It's still it's still in service years later, and that's it held up. The original Connie, the proportions weren't quite right. You won't necessarily see it until you really see them side by side, but some of the angles weren't right. The nacelles were too low. The facades, the spinning, glowing things in the front of the cells, they didn't look very good. They were very flat. The colors weren't really right. The blinkies were the wrong size, which is the red and green. The windows just were generic white. There's nothing behind them. And the texturing, for some reason, it was a greeny color. I don't know why. It shouldn't be vaguely green. And so when we got a full Connie built, I always call it the 4K Connie. What can we do to give it all the oomph that it deserves? Because the Connie's still simple. And the objective was, a shuttle bay inside the hull, a window, a room with the inside every single window. So as you pass, you see furniture, you see corridors, you see that stuff. That's a really important thing for me personally, seeing those windows, seeing a bridge physically in the bridge dome. So if you do zoom in, fly over, you can see a full bridge, and that always adds a lot of depth to shots. Re-adding in weapon turrets that never existed on the TOS, but you need to fire weapons from somewhere. Really, getting the facades right, just upping the detail. So the other Connie, you couldn't get close to the hull without the shapes looking more rough. But our version, you can get literally on the hull. I mean, you've seen Avalon, Air and Darkness, where we literally have Jamie Archer on the hull, and it looks as good as it does in distance because we built it all in straight away. But there's only so much detail to put on a Connie, so we said do that all in one. And it can even source separate, but we've never used it yet. But it can. So it's all the little things that really mount up, and also the color. We fixed that.
See, that's the one thing that like you go out there and you can tell the difference between, like, the classic, TOS where it kind of glows blue and you're like, wait, what? And then when they redid the CGI stuff, and it looks, kind of fancier, the CGI stuff that you guys do nowadays, all from the inside of your computer. Like, it blows my mind that you guys have the ability to build models, to tweak things, to say, I don't like this, I'm going to change it. I mean, it still blows my mind that you guys can, change the registry. I'm still like, oh my God, that's awesome. Because it's
I've
like,
done a lot of that.
I mean, as a kid, like I took my micro machines and I would scrape the registry off and redo, just I'm like, oh, I want a different chip than the Enterprise, and here you guys are like, oh, I'll type that up and we're good to go,
Well, I mean, I think I must have like 11 Connies pre-textured. I've got Farragut, I've got Defiant, I've got Constitution, I've got Excalibur, I've got Essex. If someone asks for it once, I've got it. It's not very hard to do, but they're all sort of waiting. And so when Crossroads, sorry, your partner in crime in forgotten his name for a second. Frank, yeah. He has different names on Facebook. So his real name is, he has the Farragut in his tile sequence. I was like, oh, cool. Never made the Farragut before. Okay, it's the Farragut now.
Well, you also did you also did my version of, and I was very humbled by that. You did my Blue Warp Nacelle version of the Constar by that, and it's always nice to see, my ship, in some fashion, especially when it's a surprise like that. It's like, oh, but I think that's the one thing that's nice to have, CGI artists able to do these type of things is tweak the ship. It gives us that dream we had as kids, where we have the toys and we play with them as we want, but we're like, man, we think up these ideas, but we can't actually create them. And now our toys have gotten better and we can play with them as we see fit, and you guys allow us to do those things,
One of the side benefits, which only comes from years of experience, is that before I sort of came on the scene and started working for so many people, you had like Gods and Men and Farragut and then Continues all looking so different in their space effects. They're using different teams, and obviously, it got newer technology. And so you never thought, well, that's the same ship as this. They're all Connies, but they feel so different. The fact that I've now done these different productions with the same Connie model, literally just changed textures and a few other things, means that they are in a sort of visually shared universe. You can watch a Federation Files, a later one, and then cut to Republic, maybe then the next one, I guess. One of the many films, say, oh, it's the same. It feels like the same Connie. It feels like you're just seeing this old girl coming home, rather than saying, well, why are these all weird details weird, etc. And that's a small detail, but it's kind of nice to create this little shared verse. And in fact, I did a video for Jonathan Lane's fan film panel. The end video he had as a deal was to put every single fan film ship in one flyaway, which was extremely hard to do because they're all high res models. And so I threw in like multiple Connies, multiple Avalons, but it's so many different ships, but they're all you've never seen them together ever. And it was like, damn, Renegades, Gods and Men, Farragut, this is a true collaboration of legacies here, all from this one shot. So that was fun.
Well, and that's the thing that I think, because I think in some capacity, almost everyone in fan films is either come in contact with you or, message you. Like a lot of people know you. So in a lot of regards, like you've worked on a lot of films. It's at, what's that, six ways to bacon or whatever, or 6 degrees of, and in a lot of capacity, like you have your own version of that game, and so it was kind of cool to see like all these ships where it's like, they're, years apart, but yet they're still kind of that one big happy fleet, per se.
Yep. 100%. But speaking of happy fleet, we've got Republic to show as well.
Yep. I will get that on here. Give me 1 second.
Which is a little bit later.
Now, on the Republic 2.0, will that be something similar to what you're going to be producing? Because we both have our own version of Republic that we're going to be doing, and then there's going to be a third version of.
Weird, eh?
Yeah.
Good
yeah.
for Ray. Lucky Ray.
Right. So will that be the 2.0? Is that going to be in? Is that still going to be what you're doing on Republic? Because we saw an Excelsior class there.
Yeah. Briefly though, the Republic was my first biggest project, and when I thought like 9 shots was a lot. Oh dear, and I see lots of problems with those. That they don't age as well in smaller shots. No, Republic 2.0 was a thing. 3.0 was a post guideline version of that, but no, 4.0, which is how I kind of call this other version, it won't have anything in common, because the whole idea was to, if I'm being involved again, I want to be more of Ray's original vision. Otherwise, it's not I've got my own films, so no, it won't be anything. That's why I'm showing it here as what could have been. Scripts are finished, shots were sort of thought of, but yeah, we're going to go Excelsior, and it was going to be really cool. There's some cool stuff in 2.0.
So, based on what you were going to do, what were some of the things you were thinking about doing, since it was kind of an unreleased type thing? What were some of the things you were thinking about doing?
Well, it was about shifting, about giving the story some extra weight, because one of the biggest notes that they got, Jim Van Dalton and Ray, was that just TOS isn't impressive enough for the crowdfunding audience, and so I suggested moving a big chunk of it into the Wrath of Khan era, which is expensive but is visually impressive. And if you then incorporate a good chunk of that, and then have our characters end up on the Republic, the original Connie, so kind of swapping the ships from the Columbia, the Daedalus, and the TOS Republic to a TOS Connie and a Excelsior, and so you kind of get to this really cool vibe. And because you've then had 2 ships, 2 eras, you then have characters from 2 eras interacting, which is then another bit of dynamic. But similar story. The whole idea was never to change the story. That was Ray's story for a reason. But actually giving it that extra era fun, and certainly seeing an Excelsior get blown to hell would have been cool.
So, Brian England,
yeah.
And first off, anybody who has questions in the chat, feel free to ask at any time. Yeah. We'll stop what we're talking about when it's appropriate and ask away. But Brian England does have a question. He says, "What kind of render software do you use? I was running Lightwave when I was trying to learn."
Yep, still Lightwave. It's far from the industry standard. It's somewhat of a dinosaur, or at least the old version is. But my mentality when doing Trek Yards was obviously Lightwave was super around when I started in 2015, but also that's the software that all the shows are made in when they moved to CG. So Voyager's Tile Sequence, the CG stuff was made in Lightwave. All seasons there was CG, all of DS9, all of Enterprise, some of Nemesis was, some of, so the vibe you can create visually is through the Lightwave render engine. And I, as a renderer, I can see the difference between 3ds Max or Lightwave, just how it lights things differently, just as a vibe. Like if Gods and Men was rendered in Max. And so even though the universe has moved past me in terms of what I can do in the software, if my aim is to recreate 90s looking Star Trek, well, I'm not trying to make 2021 looking Star Trek, am I? So it doesn't matter if I'm all fancy. It needs to feel like it did How We Know, and they can, you can replicate miniatures looks in that version. You can recreate, the show looks, and you can create movie looks. So I'm sort of limiting myself a little bit, but that's the era of Trek that we love. So I'm absolutely fine being limited. I can still some cool stuff.
Well, that's the one thing that I've always said, because you worked on one project of mine. It
Wasteland?
was yes. I see. I've made so many. I lose track of my own films. Wasteland. And that was the one thing that I was like, God, this, the Klingon ships that are in that, even the Constar A that's in that, like it has that 90s television vibe. When the Klingon fleet arrives, it's like, you get goosebumps because you're like, man, this is very reminiscent of a scene that you would have seen in the battle to go fight the Dominion, or when the Klingons are attacking DS9 in The Way of the Warrior. It's just, it has that 90s vibe. And I always say that, like, this looks very like 90s Star Trek. And I love that because, again, I think most of us around, my age are going to say that's our Star Trek, much like, our, the previous generation look to TOS and say that's Star Trek, so I as much as modern Star Trek may have a nicer gloss to it in some fashion. I don't personally like. Yeah, I say it with a question mark. Because I
and
know
the irony is that, and having worked with a lot of these show models, a lot of some of the Discovery season 3 ships, which are very simple, have less details than 1990s Star Trek model. Now, yes, that could be the style because they're meant to be sort of smooth hull. That's fine. But some of the 90s stuff looks and feels more detailed than something 20 years later. Now, yes, the 90s team was trying to overbuild. They always wanted to do more than they had to because they were big Star Trek fans. But just because newer doesn't mean more detailed. Now, the movie stuff, like the J.J. Abrams, those are detailed to all hell. Like, those things are absolutely insane. But, I mean, there's, a lot of stuff still looks great, the 90s stuff.
Well, you and I have talked about the 32nd century space fleet when they're inside that anomaly space dock thingy. And it's like there's not any glory shots of the ships. I mean, I still don't really know what the USS Nog looks like. I know because I've seen online some
Star Trek Online. What a guys.
Yeah, like it's in Voyager you always saw a beauty shot, like the Dauntless. You saw a beauty shot of that. You saw a beauty shot of the Prometheus. You saw beauty shots of all these ships. So just at an instant, you could say, "I love that ship," or "I hate it. It looks like crap." I really can't tell you what any of these ships look like. Like the Voyager J. I saw the registry. I don't know what the ship looks like. Now I know there's online shots of this is the concept.
Trek-yards.
No, I did. That's where I got that's where I got, but if it wasn't for that, like, honestly, your show, if it wasn't for your show, I wouldn't know what half those ships on there look like because, they don't give you a hey, this is what the ship looks like. And to me, I think that's a disservice because we crave those things now in this type of generation,
well, every ship from TOS into Enterprise, it was the ship was one of the characters. It really was.
Yep.
Even the shuttle pods Enterprise, you had an attachment to.
Yep.
Discovery ships aren't. None of them are. I mean, they just don't have any of that. And that is feels like an intentional thing, or they just can't recapture the magic. Same with Les Arena and Picard. There's nothing there. Cerritos, yes, there is.
Right.
But the stuff in those other shows, it's the same teams. Remember, same exact team making both the VFX team, making Picard and Discovery, and they just can't capture that feel.
Well, the best thing about the Cerritos, and this makes me like the ship and want to use it somewhere, even though I think the ship is visually ugly. But where in the background it's the Romulans and the Borg fighting, and the ship turns around and runs away. And it's like, fuck this shit. I love that because it tells you everything you need to know about the ship, the crew, the show. And with Discovery, even now, heading into 4 seasons. I know the Discovery ship. Every other ship, don't know. Now, the Enterprise we got from that, I liked that. I thought that was a beautiful looking upgrade. But every other ship in that, I couldn't. I still don't know what the card ship on Star Trek. I still don't know what that ship looks like. Because it's so forgettable to me. Everything just kind of blurs together. It's so fast, you don't get a chance to soak it up. But so Captain Foley asks, Sam, what is one of your favorite shots to have rendered, and which one are you most proud of?
I don't know if he's being specific to just talk about today or anything. There's certainly some Romulan war shots, which are super cool, which I'm sure we'll get to in a minute. There's one particular shot in Temporal Anomaly where we see the EE fly. I'm like, that's right out of Nemesis. Like I captured the lighting. I don't often capture like that is the Trek lighting. There's one of them I'm really proud of. And actually, there's one of the Republic shots which is the one where the Daedalus gets attacked and powers down, and that's always been one of mine and Ray's favorite shots. And in fact, I think it was a birthday present for him. I actually remastered it like 8 months ago with all the modern stuff, replace the models, do the lighting from scratch. Went from being 3 render layers, stars, ships, beam, to like 14 render layers, all manually done. Beam, energy, facades, windows, Connie, put all together. And it's like, God, that's better. That's how it should look, And I had to, deconstruct some of my old choices, which like, oh God, why did I do that? Why are those settings like that? So that's what I'm still very proud of. And the remaster version looks much nicer.
And Captain Foley asks again, which shot was a complete nightmare for you to work on and why?
A lot of the Romulan war shots. You've seen it. You see the carnage. Yeah. God damn. I mean, I love Mark, and I also hate Mark because you love the idea, you hate doing it, but when fans see the final result and it's like the pure ambition that's on screen, you've never seen that. Even in Star Trek, like those battles sometimes are bigger than like our amount of shots are bigger than DS9 battles. Like, they might have 9 shots in a row. We have 35 in the same amount of time. It's insane. Sucks, but also like that once finished is incredible.
Well, and not to mention with the ships that you brought to the table, like some of those were like, I've not seen that. I don't recognize that, But speaking of that, let's let the audience see what we're talking about, those that don't know, and then we'll touch base on this yet again. So here we go, and we'll look at the clip right now. So, first off, the one thing that really blew me away about this, and this is very early on in the film, is you had and I don't know the name of the class, but it was the USS Franklin type ship, and that blew me away because I was like, oh my God, finally it's canon here, like this, of course, being a fan film, things aren't always canon and whatnot. And Captain Foley says, damn, that was some epicness there. No, absolutely it was. Anyone that hasn't seen the Romulan Wars, watch it. It's great. And it's one of those ones where we really missed out on Enterprise because we were supposed to get it and we never did. We were cheated. And if you felt cheated on that, go watch this. It's got some great CGI battles. It's got some great character stuff for what's going on during the war. You feel invested in what's going on, and every hit of a torpedo you feel that weight. And to me it felt like going into it had the emotional impact of a battle that Wrath of Khan had, except on a larger scale with every phaser and torpedo. But I love not only the fact that you put that Franklin ship in the film, but you had a very Battlestar Galactica-esque feel in that last clip where you kind of zoom in and then you zoom out and then you zoom back in right before it collides with the Romulan ship. To me, shots like that are always just mwah. I love that because it's easy to have a far off shot where you see the ship collide and boom. Those are very static shots. There's not much to it, but that right there takes thinking, and you feel with the ship, and I love it. So I'm going to shut my mouth now because people want to hear me talk. what was everything that went involved? Start from the beginning. Let's hear it. What happened, and how did you become involved in this project?
Yeah, so that was definitely one where, and Mark has had this project on his mind for a very long time, and I was very pleased to be the artist that sort of was able to realize it for him. He wrote the mockumentary style in like 2006, so this has been a long time coming. Not to say he hasn't rewritten it post guidelines and post cast restrictions, etc. But he approached me because he saw Trackyard's work. I got an email and we had a meeting, and I'll be honest, I had no concept of how much he wanted from me in that first meeting. He certainly undersold it by probably about 200 shots. And I might have thought twice about accepting had I actually known. But like I said earlier in the interview, it might suck sometimes, but when you see the final result, it's you want people to have this sort of ambition. It's really cool.
Right.
It is a film that has a thing called feature creep, which if you've heard of this game Star Citizen, the famous game.
I don't think so.
So it raised over 100 million on crowdfunding sites. It's the biggest crowdfunder ever, and it still hasn't been released like 8 years on because they were so well funded that they kept upping what they wanted to do, which is logical. They had more money, more ability, but obviously more stuff takes more time, and it was very high end, and they still haven't released anything. It's almost a decade, and so Romulan War, they got some good funding. He got me involved who could do more things. He kept upping what I wanted to do, and obviously that takes more time because if you say let's have 3 new Romulan ships, well, that takes 1 to 3 months just to get them in the film, let alone do the shots, etc. So it was a really great project because it is big, it is broad. He has a lot of logic, a lot of thought. It's probably the most well thought out fan film in history in terms of how everything connects, the history, the lore, how it connects to both the main canon, the side canon, sometimes beta canons on the books. There is a grander storyline in it, which is fantastic. It isn't just a documentary. There is more because it's actually a documentary in the TNG era, which is why there was a DS9 shot talking about the Romulan War. Because one of the last Romulan Tal Shiar officers has come forward and say, "Hey, Federation, there are actually more things than you knew at the time." And then you learn that in the documentary. So because of that, you get really nice extra vibe. You get to see a bit of the Romulan perspective, and you wouldn't get in a normal documentary. And we have a new Romulan main warship, we have new Romulan star bases, we have the Romulan carrier, and I've designed 15, 20 new ships, stations, things, and that for me as a fan, I would love that to be in fan films, and in fact, lots of fan films are doing more and more things, and I really encourage that. But to have that much, seeing a fleet, the shot where the fleet warps away, and yes, you have an NX, but you have like 4 other ships I've designed. Now, there might be kit bashers in a sense, but I'm a very it's got to make sense sort of person. So if I've sort of accepted it as a make sense design and connect the dots, and hopefully the fans like yourself will think, oh, I see what we did there. Great, that's a new Miranda class NX era, and now the fleet becomes broader, and we need that, for that sort of film.
So Captain Foley asks, how many ships have you designed?
Yeah, if you include like work bees and space stations, I'm probably on like 30 for different projects. It's getting insane. It was a lot when I had 4. It's a lot more. I keep thinking when I eventually retire, if I'm allowed to retire, I need to get them 3D printable and make myself, an Eagle Moss. Need to make myself an Eagle Moss collection style, designer front. Make my little booklet of each ship, throw my sheet sketches, get them printed in the same model. Buy some old boxes and have like the Commander Cockings line of Eagle Moss for his own ships.
I think I think there will be a market out there for people that want that book, because you're like, just looking at the stuff that you have in this film. I mean, you definitely have, you got to be paying attention to what's going on in the background.
Oh yeah.
Because I mean, there's no falling asleep during one of these films. Because there's a lot going on. I mean, just the first film was 25 minutes, and it went by like that. But yet, I mean, it's so crammed full of information.
Yeah.
And we're just talking visual styles. We're not even talking or touching about the story.
And Mark is a fantastic editor. He really excels. Like, it is just smooth as silk. I remember the first time watching it, because I was holding off watching a full edit for as long as possible, but finally sitting down and watching it was just a whole different experience. He's a really good editor. And I mean, he's turning, a lot of footage, a lot of things into a really cohesive piece.
William J says, make sure the Foley class is represented. And Captain Foley says, amen, brother. So, you have some fans here who are paying attention,
Oh,
so,
dear.
I mean, the fans speak, so.
Well, have to be
So-
NX Foley. God, what a Dreadnought Foley NX be. Hey, well, I can't bet than Yorktown, though. You can negotiate with Mark Stewart. You can negotiate.
So how long did it exactly take you? I mean, I know the film took years to do, but for all the CGI effects, you said there were like, what, 200 shots in this?
In part 1, yeah, there's going to be about 200, maybe like 180. Yeah, it's insane.
So did you do everything all at once, or did you do them in two separate?
No, and in fact, we were doing it as, I believe it was 13 episodes, and so I was doing in episode order. I was going through it, and then suddenly the guidelines came around, and he shifted to 215 minutes, 220 minutes, less. And he had to completely rewrite the entire thing, and we threw away some shots, actually. Not a lot, obviously, but a couple, and used them for trailers. And that involved a whole reforming. Suddenly, whatever I had done became like, okay, reshuffle. And then he moved a lot then he did another edit where he moved a lot from part 1 into part 2 into part 1, so he can end at a stronger note. So I'd suddenly all of a sudden like 30 more shots to do at the end, and a battle didn't exist originally. So I was doing sporadically, but I would often spend 3 months back to back on it as my prime project. As I got more busy, it's kind of like I can spend 3 or 4 weeks back to back, but it's lots of chunks. But obviously, like I say, if you suddenly says, I need a Bromlin carrier, the R&D, the build, the texture, it can take 2 months by itself. And a lot of the time he just throws stuff at me all of a sudden that may in theory be in the plan, but do you know how many projects I'm working on? I can't be reading his entire plan and then I'm doing a storyboard to say how many things I need. Oh wait, now Dominion needs me. Oh wait, now Vance needs me for random film. So I can only go so far ahead, and it's his job to kind of like work out what he needs and when he needs it, etc. So it's a juggle. But again, once it's done, you'll thank the great maker for the amount of cool stuff.
Just to remind everybody in the comments, we have about 13 minutes left before we're done with the show. Please ask any questions you guys have. I mean, that's what we're here for. We'll stop what we're talking about. We'll answer your question real quick, then we'll hop back on where we are. So please ask any and all questions that you guys have for Sam. So going back to these ships, you have you relied mostly, at least on the NX class in part 1. We saw the Franklin.
Mm-hmm.
Which one from that era is your favorite one to work on? Because of course you've worked on Constitution, but that's not your favorite. Which one from this era was just a pleasure to work on from the Federation side? We'll get to the Romulan in a second, but Federation side, which one did you really love to work on?
Yeah, for a lot of films, you don't get the chance to do many shots and really get a sense of them. And for sure, Romulan War, every kind of ship gets a bit of a limelight. Normally, they wouldn't be created without a limelight in mind. We designed the after Discovery Season 1 came out, which says how long we're working on it. I kind of said to Mark, you know what? They can have a lot of weird pre-TOS ships. We can have a lot of NX ships that exist that you haven't seen before. And so I kit bashed him like 5 different ships. He only took 4. I still like the 4th, but oh well, or the 5th. And then we kind of made them as this half saucer fleet, because in my logic, the half saucer, which was the pre-NX class, which has literally the front half of the saucer, these bigger chunky nacelles, and these fins, and that was an NX Enterprise like 3 times. But I thought it was quite nice. It flows quite well in motion. And I said, well, if that's the pre-NX class, then if you're going to make a defense fleet around Earth, because they don't explore in the NX era, that was the NX class. So these are all home defense, planetary defense, Alpha Centauri defense. Well, you're going to only reach a certain point and then use that class as a baseline. So the half saucer is the baseline. They're going to create other things. So, the Reliant variant, which has the roll bar, and you have the one nacelle, which is the Kelvin, etc. So all of those have their own unique flows to them. The NX is always a pleasure sometimes. Well, that sort of defeats itself, but it looks great from some views, but it's very flat, and you're going to kind of work with that. Although I had a brilliant time when he said, I need a shot of the ship where it goes at camera and then does a 180 turn and then 360 and warps out. And it's really dynamic. Again, that sort of angle is really difficult. It took quite a few iterations, but it looks so good in those sorts of very sharp motions. The NX does. It's very because it looks like it can cut through the space air. So the NX is pretty fun. The Franklin's actually a really nice one to work with. I did a big kit bash retexture to make that look, prime, because it's the prime version. So yeah, Franklin NX are kind of the nicest actually. They had the most thought and they had the most balance. Although it's always fun when you can throw in a warp delta, which is the triangle ship.
Mm-hmm.
That it like your brain says, oh, it's so old school. It's like, oh, that's like a relic ship, and it has an elegance to it.
Mm-hmm. So William J says, is there a race or a ship design that Sam has had to respectfully say no to because he had no interest in it?
I try not to say no. I try to change minds if I need to suggest something different. I don't. If you from that teaser segment for Romulan War, if you remember, there's those giant bulbous ships in the dry dock. I hate them. Hate them. Think they're awful. They were designed by a chap in the 90s, I believe, as like the Romulan War fleet, and they're all these big bulky ships, and same as some Romulan ships. But therefore, they only use like a bit of TNG and a bit of TOS. They don't use any NX. They don't use anything. They don't use any of the canon besides like a bit of TOS. And there's only like 2 Federation ships in TOS, so they make no sense in the abstract of the now canon. And I kept asking him, "Can we just not use these?" I don't like them, but they serve a very specific purpose in the movie, so I have to use them. But I don't like using them. I mean, we've got a horror story with one of the variants, which just took 9 months to fix and build, and just a horror story of a ship. No one particular's fault. Just one thing always goes the worst on one film, and that was the worst. So those I don't like using. But no, I mean, I encourage diversity. I've used a lot of Klingon stuff, a lot of Romulan. Certainly, I've used a Connie probably too much. Everyone wants a Connie flyby. Can someone commission a Miranda variant, a TOS Miranda? Somebody, come on! I want to make one. I want to design one. Come on! Like Frank was great. We got to do his whatever ship, the Harrison. Like that was a bit different, and the new Dominion Dreadnought is really nice. I really like how I redesigned that ship. Give me a Miranda, somebody, waiting for it.
So Captain Foley asks, how long does a standard shot take from beginning to end to create?
Well, a flyby can take a day. A battle can take a week. That's what, assuming I'm doing other things, but it all depends how many things. I still go old school. When they did the original effects for TNG, for the miniatures, they would physically film them, obviously, but they would, to get the glows, the windows, all the things to properly exist in the shot and have its own life, they would actually light the ship and turn on the insides and turn the outsides off, do all them in different separate filming passes on a computer, as in the computer control the camera, and so you would then have just the windows, reset the camera up, turn the lights on, just the ambient, whatever. And so I do my CGI in the same way, because that gives you total control. If you want to make the facades turn off, you have to render them separately. You can't just and so for a big battle, if you've got 6 different ships, then I'm doing Romulan Stormbird, glows, window, radiosity, weapons. You've then got so the bigger the battle, the more just tedious it is. And so those can take just like literally 16 hours just to do all of the manual bullshit, just set up, and then you go compose it. Then, for Squadron, which we'll talk about next time, all the shield impacts, they're all hand done, hand tracked, all the torpedoes hand done. It's all very, very tedious, but I mean, it's the way to do it, so it can take a very long time.
Well, Captain Foley says you have the respect of beta canon, Sam, and I agree with that. You've done a lot. You've done a lot to create different varieties and variants and whatnot, and go out there. I've never known you to not give anyone something that they ask for. At least, in terms of the ships and everything, the scene, you try to make stuff better if you can. A lot of people, they have their own locked in version of it, and from my perspective, like a director has their vision of it, but then it's up to the editor to kind of make it better. And a CGI guy, is kind of the same way. Like a director or whoever is looking at the thing, he has his idea of a space battle, but it's really kind of up to the CGI artist to say, hey, we can do that, but why don't we tweak it and do it this way? This will probably visually be better. What do you think? Ultimately it's up to them, but I appreciate random thoughts, because to me, if it was up to guys like me, everything would be, a ship flies in, orbits a planet. You're like, well, but how about if we tilt the camera and do this angle and so to me, you always kind of go that extra mile and try to make it the most visually stunning, even if it's only a 5-second clip.
Well, that's the composition in me. Like, I want to make everything different. And also I've got to try and make TOS feel different to Voyager, feel different to DS9. All these eras have different feels, all the ships have different feels. A Sovereign does not move like an NX. It can't.
Right.
Every ship has to have a unique weight to it, and that's very, I think I'm quite lucky to be able to do that. But I do remember 2 examples specifically on Republic. Gabriel, who was the director of photography, I believe he edited it as well. Nice guy, and he storyboarded the visual effects because they didn't know who they were going to get and whatever. And most storyboards, okay, right? Good, simple for them, not a problem. But one shot in particular, the shot was fine conceptually, but when you add a 3D camera and a 3D ship, you just couldn't make what he was asking for in the angle work because there's just not physically the space. Like maybe if he really cheated to nth degree, but like it just doesn't work because he's not seeing it in the same way. He can't. It's, like a ship has real length, real depth. You can't just zoom a camera. You can, but it looks too much. And so I made him sort of a version of what he asked for, and I presented my own version at the same time. Same reason for the shot, just an angle. And he's like, "Oh yeah, yours is better," because his was never going to work necessarily. Whatever. And then Mark Necro again, Romulan War. We're quite going on the same page. He gives me a reasonably clear baseline, and let's be honest, left to right, a ship attacks a ship, 10 seconds. There isn't too much you can do. You know what I mean? There's in the normal sense of the phrase,
right?
But a couple of times he hasn't liked. I've had to rejig the shot entirely. A couple of times, I've given up because he wants his one, and at the end of the day, their final say. I'll always present what I think, and this as well. Once I present something, I'm personally happy with it.
Right.
If I'm happy with it with my standards, that's why 7 out of 10 times a client will just say, "Yeah, go for it," because I'm happy with it. I don't release stuff that I'm not happy with. But that just might not fit the artistic vibe they're looking for, and that's okay,
Right.
And I can't necessarily know that, and I can't know the edit until I don't get the edit. So and often Mark doesn't tell me if these shots are actually edited together. Normally, I assume they're all abstract, as in space shot, voiceover with shot of actor, but back-to-back shots, space shots do need to have a flow, and if you don't tell me, I can't create the flow, and I've had to often. Well, a couple of times go back and sort of reinvent the start and end to kind of match better because I wasn't informed. Easy misstep, but that's why I like being given a full script, reading it, and kind of abstractly saying, "Oh, actually, that point needs 3 shots." And they're like, "Ooh," I'm like, "It does, it really does." And then sometimes like, "Oh, that's one. Let me do a really cool shot there. That's a oneer." Because at the end of the day, I'm busy. I'm not going to milk people for 4 shots if it can be done in 2. 2 will probably be better. Hey, if you want a close up, use a close up, but it's got to be done right.
Right. So Mark Lawrence says, "I need to commission you to render my ship design."
That's news to me. Cool.
So, there you go. Well, Mark, reach out to Trek Yards or Sam. He's easy to reach. So chat with him, get that going. Because
of course, we'll see you in 30 minutes to get me drunk. So we're doing a drunk live. This is our 7-year anniversary. It was our 7-year anniversary like 3 days ago. So we're doing our drunk yards live today in 30 minutes.
Oh, right on, man.
So if you want to come by and ask some drunk ass questions in like 2 hours, we'll be sloshed and give you the truth. We do the interview, but drunk.
So William J asks, how rough does Sam think working on a Disco era Federation ship be? Something like the Federation ships from the Battle of the Binary Stars.
I mean, I'm waiting for the call to do some Discovery era stuff. It's hard to reconcile into canon, so it's hard for anyone to do it. I don't know how you would really. I can make anything. I can try and make anything look as good as I can. I mean, I did the CG shots of the JJ ships for you and Gary, and that's a whole different thing, JJ stuff. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to disrespect the source material if the shot's more important. Obviously, if depending on the client and the guy, I would say, can I tweak the Discovery ship to look more canon? Do you care if I change it 25% to look better? Can I put a bridge mod? You know what I mean? The little things that doesn't matter. But I would be interested. I think a lot of the problem with the Discovery ships was how they were shot, was how they were lit, was how they were framed. I could make them look better than they made them look, but that's because they had different objectives. And let's be honest, having seen some of those 3D models they use, they were so low detail that there's a reason why a lot of the first half of the season 1 stuff was so dark, because they didn't have confidence in their own models. So harsh shadows hides the mistakes, hides the problems, whereas you want them to shine. So, someone do a fan film, have me come in and let's make it look better. I don't think it'd be that difficult.
You hear that, guys? It's a challenge. Let's give Sam some. Let's break Sam on this discovery thing. So let's do it. So
and that's when he retired. He had to make a discovery fan film. Blame Vance.
Then he can go make that book. So yeah. last question, and then and we'll make it quick because I know you got your thing you got to go do. What was your favorite ship that you worked on for the Romulan side of the Romulan Wars?
I think the Stormbird, the D7, the proto D7, because it's got a great backstory. It's my first original design, so obviously that's got a big part. It's heavily flawed. The 3D model was the first one we ever did as a team as well, but that's really fun to do. It's not as elegant as it could be, but it's a battleship. It shouldn't be elegant. It's not meant to be. So that's always fun to work with. Easy answer for that one.
Right on, man.
Yeah.
Well, everybody in the chat who joined us live, I want to say thank you.
Well, I don't know if you want to briefly ask me to tease a CGI thing for the New Republic, or I don't know if you want me to try and get a teaser at me for that, because there's CGI for that as well.
Do you have it?
No, I'm saying audibly, like, is there, do you have a question that's a teaser? Try and get something out of me for that one. I don't know.
I'm confused. What?
Well, the Republic 4.0. Do you have a question about that? What might be coming in that CG wise?
Oh, you mean in your version of Republic?
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, I asked you earlier, and I thought that. Oh, okay. Well, yeah. I mean, absolutely. Anything you want to throw at me?
Ask something specific. Because I don't have to be. Ask me a specific question. I'll try and give a specific answer. Let's see if you can get something out of me.
Well, what type of CGI shots are you doing? Like, what ships are you going to have involved with the new with your version of Republic? Because that's like what all exactly you're going to be having? Because I know you've told me some story elements, and I don't want to spoil some things for you. So
well, I can say there'll be a Coddy and there'll be a Daedalus. There's a scoop right there.
Oh my God. Wow. You heard it here first, folks. Oh my goodness.
But there will be a brand new Daedalus model, which is real nice. Real nice. One of our Trek Yards team, Matt Baldwin, did it, and he did it for just a passion project in the lockdown. I said, we could put that on film if you want us, if you let us. He said, I'm like, yeah. I'll give it some life and I'll destroy it. So that's gonna look real pretty.
Right. Now, last question. When exactly do you think that your Republic will be out? Because I know I'm going to be filming mine. Fingers crossed. Next September, maybe October, depending on what the temperature is. Because I don't want to go film when it's too hot. And again, that's if everything's in perfect working order in a perfect world. With hopefully a release of maybe March, February or March of the following year. So when are you expected to start working on filming and whatnot? And is it going to be a physical thing, or is it going to be a green screen like Temporal Anomalies?
Well, a bit of everything. It's a bit more creative in that way, but also it's meant to be filmed under much shorter conditions on purpose. I think Ray wants to film it early next year, and who knows if he can release it next year. I don't know. That's not really up to me necessarily. So there's a lot of other cogs in that, but it's trying to be clever, and clever means efficient, and efficient means doable quicker.
Well, there you go.
In theory.
Right on, man.
There is one shot at the end which is going to be insanity, absolute insanity. Like you're gonna go, what did I just watch? Like 2 shots. I was gonna break my PC if I use the model I think I'm going to use. It's one of the highest polygon models ever, and it's gonna suck, but it's gonna look amazing. So that's gonna Yeah.
Well,
there's a tease. There's a tease.
Well, right on, man. Anytime we hear you cackling on screen, that's time well
Yeah.
spent. So, all right, man. Well, everybody in the chat, thank you for coming. And don't forget, next Wednesday is going to be part 3 of Samtober at 1 p.m. Central. So please join us. And what exactly are we going to be discussing next week, Sam?
Yeah, we'll be talking about the Avalon universe, which is a fantastic set of films. We'll be talking about Squadron, which was a fantastic Dominion War era film, and Drone Dominion. So a bit of all those films, which is kind of my current gen projects. And then the fourth one will be with Trek shorts, which is my own stuff again. So it kind of bookends with my stuff, and then the middle, all those other great, amazing guys.
I like how I like how it's just like with Trek, how it has several different eras of, and that's you with, your different eras of.
I like need that. It, man. I get it gets dull working on all one thing, and suddenly go from TOS to NX era, then suddenly to it's good. It's really refreshing to swap eras.
Right on, man. All right, well, we'll see you next week, and everybody, be genuine, be safe, and keep on geeking on, guys.
Thanks, everyone.